goals and your objectives. So last week we really focused about objectivities and then what kind of objectives we have, and then it's really specific for application though, right? And just aim is like a broad umbrella, and then all the way it's really general statement, and then you have a goal statement specifically kind of under the umbrella, and then objectives, what is a specific action that how can you carry out the goal carry out the aims, right? And so based on the objectives and what teachers think about how can they teach in the classroom, how can they design the classroom with the objectives, right? And then today we move on to, so what are we going to teach? What is the content of the curriculum? So we are thinking about today learning about the curriculum content. Depends on where you guys belong to and where you guys work for, and then the characteristic of a curriculum is different. If you work with church and then just develop a program and maybe develop the path of a discipleship curriculum, and maybe if you work in a organization and then you should really focus on the skills and related job skills and how you can do it. And sometimes if you go to secondary schools and then they provide a lot of classes related to jobs, right? Like this, and then depends on the organization and depends on the kind of goal of organization and institute, and they design, they think about and how can they develop the curriculum, and then this is we're gonna put this theory and this and what we're gonna use this design, right? And then what is the goals and what is the objectives, and then what are we gonna put in the curriculum? Right? So what kind of subject we're gonna put in the curriculum? That is the curriculum content. So nature of content. What is the nature of content? Content is like this, defined as a subject matter of the teaching, right? And teaching and learning process, it includes knowledge about fact, concept, and generalizations, principle and so forth, and also projects or skills associated with knowledge based on values associated with the subject or whatever is being learned. That's a definition given by Print. Just there supposed to be there is what? Knowledge should be there, and skill is there, and what else? Value is there. And I know there's an abstract, but how can you just think about when you developed the Christian education curriculum, and then what kind of knowledge you need? And maybe that's a Christian is a really important word, and then it's different from non-Christian, non-believers, and like general university educations, right? They have their own values, they have their own knowledge systems to understand the world, and then they can, maybe skills, maybe we can borrow from the general education, but still, if they have their own, and then how can we use that one? So like this, and then just there is kind of objectives of class, and then a goal of class, and then they put the knowledge and skills and values. That's the basic nature of concept. Here is another example. It's just almost similar to the Print. Like the Hyman here defined the content as consisting knowledge, fact, explanation, principle, and definition, skills and possessions like reading, writing, calculating, dancing, and critical thinking, and make a decision, and communicating, like this. And values like belief about matter, concern about good and bad, right and wrong, and beautiful and ugly. Basically, when we think about the content of the curriculum, and then what kind of knowledge we can present through this class, this course, right? And then what kind of skills, tangible things like this class, and if they could finish this class and they can design, they can develop the curriculum, right? They can develop a curriculum like this, and then what about? How can, maybe it's not easy to see, and like knowledge and skills, it's hard to do, it's hard to see and tangible and visible, but still, how can we deliver the value of Christianity? As a Christian, and they need to develop a program, and next time when they develop programs and curriculum, they need to know how to put the Christian values in curriculum like this. Maybe explicitly, this is a Christian school, and then we can teach, our teachings are based on the Christianity, and then maybe explicitly we can teach about what's the value, what kind of value we are pursuing, and what are we aiming, like this. But explicitly we can do it. But if you go to public school, and you can pick the specific, you cannot pick the specific values based on the religion, right? So here is three components of the content knowledge. It's all about knowledge. What kind of knowledge they have to project? Here is subject matter knowledge. Okay, this is education, principle of education. Maybe Christian introduction of Christian education, and what's the learning theory? Like this. What kind of knowledge we can put in this content? So subject matter knowledge is a fact, it's a principles and generalization of words and found in the subject concerned, right? What about the pedagogical content of knowledge? Pedagogical means that what kind of method are you going to use? Based on the behavior theory, based on the cognitive theory, there's a lot of theories out there. What kind of theory are you going to take in based on? Maybe we can use 2-3 theories, right? And depends on the subject. And then basically, this is maybe this is a Christian school, and what kind of learning theories fit into your Christianity, right? So, and based on the theory, and how can we present the teaching method? So pedagogical and content knowledge is about method used by teachers and translate the subject matter knowledge into meaningful understanding for learners. Okay, they gotta learn. This is subject and like a curriculum development, and then try to give them more tools, not the practical small things, and then kind of help you broaden your perspective, and then that's my goals. And then how can you do that? But based on this one, maybe you can develop your own curriculum. That's why I attached one material on the class note. And maybe you can use a lot of different ways, and metaphors, rhythms, sayings, smile, and when you teach, and which one is better, when just think about Jesus Christ's teaching styles, and then he used a lot of parables, right? Similes and metaphors. And what about the curriculum knowledge? And then understanding of curriculum requirement, the text to teach subject matter knowledge, right? And then usually curriculum knowledge is just how can we kind of horizontal and vertical, and then just think about and the context, right? How can we display? How can you understand all the situation by analyzing situations? That's three knowledge content knowledge is kind of recommended by Fringe. Here is some example from the textbook. It's a social study curriculum, and then here is he said knowledge and what is social studies, study about society, and then until junior high school they have like this, and maybe in social study, and they until in primary education, and they don't have a U.S. history and they have the world history, right? And when they go to high school, I saw my kids in social studies category in world history and U.S. histories, like they learn about government and like this. It's a different. So here's the example. The social study curriculum is like knowledge about knowledge. They said, Australian society. He's from Australia. He's in Australia, right? And solar system, they have a broad perspective. And then Asian society, and usually Australia is kind of categorized to Asian, right? When they play sports, they are not belong to European countries. And then what about environmental studies? And what about local histories? There is a lot of indigenous, right? And European immigrants and indigenous. And then that's why the knowledge kind of provide understanding about Australia, right? And what about skills? And skills, if they grow up as in rural area, countryside, they don't know about much, right? But I know, when I was taking the geography class, and then we gotta know how to draw the world map, and sometimes it's hard every time, and we just cut it and then use, and okay, this country is major, what is natural resources. So what's the populations, all kind of stuff we gotta draw and kind of study, memorize. I still remember. So skills is like a mapping. Okay, how many stages here? Maybe they can memorize all stages. Like what is my case is like let me just go and they memorize all stages, and they try to memorize the present. From the past to present, right? And maybe they can understand about demographics, okay? What kind of ethnicity lives in this Sydney, like Melbourne, like this. And then what about the report writing? And then they need to know how to report demographics, and then how can they mappings, all kind of stuff. That is the skills they can learn relate to the social studies. And then what about how can you teach the values? Just think, there is a social study curriculum in Australia, and then what kind of value they have, they need to know, right? If they don't know, it's hard to reflect on the curriculum. So maybe they really emphasize inequality, but respect what? The difference. And then, so we gotta clarify the clarification of values. What is the values, right? And maybe there is a lot of different ethnic groups and different people's group and then what? And then we gotta understand. And I came from Korea, and then I'm attending the Caucasian American church and not a Korean church, and then they are really different, right? They don't understand me, and sometimes I don't understand them completely, right? That's why. So they don't know the values. Nowadays they know a little. It's really, just think about California. It's a lot of immigrants, and people are mixing more than other states, and then it's really So they have different values, right? And Koreans have a different value from what? Why Caucasians and even other and Latinos and blacks, and maybe there is similar things. I can see that. Even though you can go to other Asian communities, and then still their values different. And even though they have different respect for life, like this, and just think about the example. Also, knowledge is there, and skill is there, and then value is there, right? That's the social study curriculums. And then if you have a basic idea, and then how can you put the specific subject relate to this knowledge? Also, Australian society, and then how can they teach? Maybe there's books out there, and then maybe there's they need to there is a specific there is a description of a goal, the class, right? And then what is it what is it about, and what is the aim for? That's they need, and then after that, and they need a specific maybe you can change a little course names, and then we can develop the description, and then goals and description, and then and when ask a teacher, professor, and okay, you're gonna teach this one, and then give them description, right? And then sometimes, primary education is a textbook is not that. Still, they have a choice, not like college, second and higher education. So it's a lot of different ways that we can learn. And when I came here, then I went back to college. It's around 30, 31, and I was taking the history class. It's really different. It's really different. Perspective is really different, and that perspective from the left side, not the right side, and then really critical. And then some freshmen came to class, and they totally lost. And the professor said, "Okay, you are not comfortable, and then you can drop out of this class." Like this. Right? Because just think about up to high school, most of textbook is not like a higher education. Higher education, you go to college, and then one instance there's a lot of different aspects to understand. But usually, when up to high school, there is a history that they want to present, right? It's not the critical, really critical. So that is a little bit different. So maybe primary education and secondary education, maybe higher education is a perspective different. And if you go to higher education in America, more freedom is there. What kind of class you can teach, you can see, right? Even though it's your perspective is different, it's a part of America, right? That's an example of your social study curriculum that it's about content, right? What kind of content you need to put and what are you aiming at. So then, how can you select the content? There's a lot of things out there. How can you select the content? So we gotta think about what are you what is our think about what goals we achieve, right? That is what kind of values and what kind of skills we are looking for. That is just really important. There is two theories, and there was a subject knowledge approach and process approach, and then maybe subject knowledge approach is very, very common that usually we are adopting, we are taking. So usually based on what discipline and academia present, right? It's based on the what? Experience, based on the theories. So, but just think about our society keep changing and changing and changing. I came here, America is about 26 years ago, and the world is totally changed. The world is totally changed. When I was in Korea around 1996, and maybe it's hard to see the McDonald's, it's hard to see the Burger King, like American fast food chains. No, there was, but still not that many, right? But nowadays you can see here and there it's a lot. So, subject knowledge approach is the content has its own intrinsic values based upon human knowledge as determined by the academic disciplines, and supported by researches and kind of integrated in histories, right? So, and subject, usually we are doing like this in our education system. If you, as long as you don't go into special program schools, it's a different like gate program and also and talented gifted program or what. It's really specially designed and to meet the individual's need, and then basically this one. And so real value of a subject is the human knowledge accumulate over time. So knowledge is now, even though it's changing, accumulated, developed little by little. That's the value of a subject, right? And then knowledge accumulated, we cannot ignore this one, and we can, based on this knowledge by experience and by empirical researches and by suggested by the academia or academic disciplines. So this one is mostly effective expression of this knowledge aligned with the academic disciplines. So subject knowledge approaches should be drawn from the various academic disciplines as this knowledge from the what? Depositories of human wisdom is perceived of the values of the student in later life. And maybe mostly school, right? They are really, they don't even know the knowledge. And then if you go to college, maybe college and research, and then if you read a research paper, and then you consider how much they already studied from the early. And always they show the history, in literature review, and then they show the history of the study, and then from the history they research about Nagla, and they come and introduce the knowledge about related topic, but later on, but still they have this knowledge and research, and we can have developed a lot, but this one is not yet, and the paper kind of pursuing that part. This is subject knowledge approach, right? So usually, that is one of the ways that we can use, and then that's why usually when you go to classroom, they always start, when you study some psychology major, education major like this, and then always they have class introduction of psychology, introduction of something else. They can show the big picture of the psychology, and then they see the basic, how they develop and what kind of areas there, and then after that they go to very specific topics, and then a learning theory, and then they see whole there's a history section is there, and who developed and how they developed, like this, and then show the history, right? So usually the content, the subject knowledge approach means that regular schools and primary and secondary and higher educations, they use this methodology to develop your curriculum. Where is the process approach? And process approach is really, the world is not stagnant, keep changing, right? And they say that content and the knowledge is simply fabric to place over the frame of the scale, process, right? Process. So knowledge has little intrinsic values, meaning that there is intrinsic values, and then but still they say that constantly and changing, expanding. That's why they process, focus on the changing and try to adapt to the changing. So that is a little bit different, right? There is not really accumulated knowledge, but so just think about and how technologies kind of developed and kind of popular and pop nowadays, and then just pick this content and try to develop the curriculum. So this approach is particularly appropriate in society where the information technology paradigm has gained such a credence in recent years. It's not developed little by little, but how society changing, but still if you go to developing countries, are still not here, right? And if you use a high technology and really develop the technology, and it's really convenient. Sometimes it's really amazing. And yesterday, so someone said, oh, I saw cars coming, motorcycle, but it's flying in the air and the what? And in the air and the what? And when they landed and they drive like a car, it's a flying car. They said, oh, it came out, it's like $750,000, and then wow. But for me, it's not new. About 10 years ago, my daughter was in high school. She was taking physics class, and then was a teacher, wants the student to expose to other subject like related to physics, and then there's a kind of option is there. Okay, you can go this one, you can go this one. Pick the one and you gotta go. And then one day, I take my daughter to the workshop about flying cars. At that time, they introduced and then how they started and really kind of brief history, and then how they are developing. But about 3-4 years ago, I watched the documentary and then about that one. But I didn't know that is the product came out to the market. Society is changing, right? So they believe that the content in the form of the past knowledge is essentially really moribund. And such knowledge is outdated even before it disseminate to common public forms such as book. And then when you write a research paper, and then they are really prepared in 10 years how they research about what scholars said. And if you go to 20 years, and then they say too old. And sometimes 30 years old, and then it's hard to. I can make a brief, briefly scholars that research about them. After that, there's no related articles. And when I research about second generation Korean Americans, especially focus on the millennials, and then not much resources. And they really talk about the second generation Korean Americans. It's a different from, so it's hard to find the resources, and it's hard to find, not many subject participant subject, and then one of my advisor as a committee and said, why don't you extend a little bit to the Korean Americans? But I know it's easier, but I have to work a little bit differently. So I don't want to fix all the things, but still there. And then usually you have too much old data and books and references, and you gotta change. You gotta find the new ones. So it's hard to find a new one, and then we gotta explain, right? Sometimes already the research is done, but 10 years later, 20 years later, society changing, but scholars are not interested in go back, revisit the topic, and then there's no research anymore, right? That's why, and past knowledge is like they already gone, and sometimes it's not related to us. Maybe it's a part of history. That's all. That's your approach. So, and when you select your content and think about what kind of what kind of theory you're gonna take, and subject knowledge approach or the process approach. Maybe I can make a kind of hybrid, make a balance, and we gotta know the past knowledge, and we gotta know the current issues and current relevances, and then what are they? But still, when you especially relate to the issues, especially the issues related to life and the forms, maybe the forms of issue are different, but still a lot of things are same, right? That's why I think it's, personally, I know sometimes it's not, but still maybe we can, if you use a process approach and give you more dynamics and interesting and to get involved in, engage with the studies, right? So what kind of criteria are you gonna use when you develop when you pick the content? So we already talked about what kind of content should be inside of the content, and what is the theories about. Two theories I introduced, and then what is your content selection criteria? You cannot take whatever you want. Maybe you're interested in maybe political background and your religious background. Not really though. So like the Christian schools, maybe we can mainly use our religious background, but still we need to know the other how they teach, what kind of method available, and how they understand education and how they understand the student. There's a lot of resources out there, so we cannot ignore them. We gotta learn from them, right? But our values, and sometimes our values and our methods is really important. Integrate knowledge is really important. There is several criteria the author print suggests. First of all is a significance. That is really significant, right? It's really significant in the curriculum that we are developing. And so significance apply where contents is judged in the terms of how essential or basic it is to discipline or theme under study. Okay, so how really essential? Really it's a basic, but we can judge it by significance. And this apply to any body of content considered for the inclusion in the curriculums. Inclusion, any. And just think about this one is significance, and then not just a specific part of the curriculum, but includes any body of curriculum, any part of your curriculums, right? And significance has a great applicability where content is perceived as a logical structures, okay? We gotta see the whole curriculum's contains a logical structures, and then find it widest application in curriculum. How can you apply? And we gotta see them. And by developmental situation that involve expert scholar, those in disciplines which the curriculum includes. So it's sometimes we don't know which one is really because a lot of resources out there, and sometimes it's not. It's correct partially, but not all the time. So that's a we said Paul paper though, and I was kind of want to study about life in Hebrew spirit, and then I typed it because I typed the topic that I interested in, and I can get an article and then try to read, and then okay, maybe pretty okay. So I adopted the knowledge, and later on I typed again, and I opened another things there like dictionary, understand, and then that is more accurate than this previous one. So I fixed everyone because this is world life, spirit, study about spirit, the word spirit, and then this is one is really really subjective, but this one is one. It's tons of the kind of examples and then different meanings, and then a little bit more. I think it's more accurate. This one is other is kind of little bit immaturely taken the meaning of the one of the meaning and kind of presented, like this, and then we can see the we can see a lot of resources about, and then you gotta know that how much scholars and expert and kind of engage in this, and then there's any significance kind of showing that, right? I know it's based on the study, but it's not a pretty, like sometimes it's usually based on the study, but still we got sampled some people. It's not everybody. There is limitation is there. A lot of things are applicable, but some is kind of depends on the sampling. We try to have kind of try to have kind of validity and repeatability, and then it's really true. Maybe we tested this subject, and then we test another subject, and it came similar outcome. That's really important for their papers, right? And that is. So process is right. How they interview, how they research, how they analyze, that's a validity. And that's a really important criteria in research. So so we can see the what is it, the significance. What about validity? It's a kind of it's regarded as a valid. It's a valid when it's authentic or true, and sometimes the content is accurate. I already told you some content make a premature conclusion, and sometimes maybe a lot of people trust, and because they don't study about that one, and then they present in his the author present in his own interpretation, and then it's okay. But if you study another study and then kind of complicated, and then there's a dilemma is there, and that's why that's validity. So it's accurate, right? So sometimes the significant test of the validity of the content is determined the degree of obsolescence, and sometimes it's too old, too outdated, right? That's we gotta test it, the validity, right? And what about the criteria of validity of content is also be measured in terms of the relation between the content and object. It means that there is objectives here, but content is really following the object or not. There is a validity in curriculum, and object is here, but content is not related to object. It's not valuable. Valid. It's not valid. That's one of the criteria, though. It's really important, right? Sometimes there's a great object is here, but we cannot, hit the target. Always jumbling around and kind of jumbling, and that's all. There's a lot of people are saying something and write something, and sometimes they can hit the target because too much the other stuff, and try to put together, and that's a really important thing. And then so importance, it is really important. Validity is really important for practicing teachers who implement syllabus developed by those external to schools such as the state and education authorities, right? So, almost same as what is the related object, and then teachers is the one who really carrying out the whole curriculum goal and objectives. So it's really important that to think about what is the goal is here and object is here and what kind of material is supposed to support is one of the validity, right? So each congruence between explicitly stated intent and evident content should not always be taken for granted. So you gotta make sure. Okay? That is a validity. So significance and then validity is one of your criteria. What about the social relevance? This is content for inclusion in the curriculum should be selected on the ground of what? Its relevance to the social development of individuals. This one is what an individual who got educated and then just think about how can they use the knowledge in society. So it reflected what is the context of the community-oriented perspective. Okay. A lot of your education is kind of there is your goals, design, and plan for the society. It's not just pursuing individual knowledge, right? So think about if you really focus about the theories and then there is no applicable abilities, and then what happened? It's hard to see the relevance, right? So always make sure, and maybe that's why we gotta change the curriculum little by little, along with changing of society. And so this criterion is concerned with the content related to moral values and ideals and social problems and controversial issues and etc. Right? And nowadays it's really socially so far. They gotta reflect. And they have classes and a lot of papers coming out. It's a kind of ongoing in history. It was ongoing like racial issues and ethnic issues, kind of ongoing in history. It's not came out to the surface, right? But it's little, so it doesn't get a lot of attention. But nowadays, think about, right? It's really different though. 10 years ago, racial issue. 10 years ago, maybe 30 years ago, right? It's really different. Because people's values and people's kind of mind is changing. So eventually, we gotta help the student to be equipped, for next level of their life. So if they go to a job and they need basic knowledge and skills, and then adjust to the society very well like this, right? And that is relevancy. So nowadays, yeah, school provides a lot of different classes. I can see them, right? And so here is some, when you think about relevance, and here is some category that you can think about, and from that, and then you can maybe get to the relevance, and then democratic problems and values, principles and values. Nowadays, a lot of people we pursuing the democracy, and then try to kind of maximize the human's capacity and right? That's why they are really getting to just think about Arab countries and Muslim countries and other Asian countries, and right? And it's really, really, they are kind of struggling with their political system. So like this, and then, it's a democratic principle and values. Maybe everybody has equality and equity, maybe. And like this, and understanding of cultural groups. And if you live in California, and what kind of cultural groups are here? When they are moving? Are they second generation or first generation? Right? Cultural group, understanding cultural group. What about the social awareness and criticism? Nowadays, it's the power abusement, especially officials, police and officials, and they are really, cause so many problems. And sometimes to think about governmental powers and pressure group, interest group, and how can we aware of the kind of all things and issues? If you don't, and it's a hard, like a environment issue nowadays, global warming, and another one is try to listen the global warming, and switch the gas car to electricity car like this, and right? And facilitation of the societal changes, how society is changing. It's like around I came to America, it's 996, and around the end of 90s, and not many people have cell phones, right? But nowadays, and even though 9 years old, and even though you're 10 years old, and mostly have a cell phone, mostly. Whether they use the whole things or function well or not, and anyway, like this. So we're gonna know that social relevance is really important, but sometimes, we gotta be careful to see, because particular group of developers prescribe content as that was dogmatic and slanted or furthering the interest of a social group, section of groups. So nowadays, the sexuality is a big issue, and they really push hard, right? And sometimes I feel like it's too much. Like was a transgendering was a kid's opinion, and parents cannot do anything, and like this, and then it's a pretty tough issues, but think about and how we can do, and then there is a lot of people, we don't project kind of a side effect of the transgendering, but usually the political, use of political political powers and lobbies and then what. And they always project, they reach, right? But if once a lot of people said it and try to, because I feel like, I'm born biological like man, but I feel like a woman, and they try to transgender and then with the hormones and medications and medicines and all. Later, it's not, and then they try to reverse, and then it doesn't work. So a lot of people are regret, because just think about if they're, to judge who they are and what kind of a lifestyle they want, but just think about kids, junior high school kids and elementary kids, and I don't know how much they understand who they are, right? I know culture is kind of really dominant nowadays, but still sometimes too young. People they develop the body fully, and they develop emotion and myself, and everything, psychologically, mentally, and physically. Just for my opinion is that you gotta wait until have a sound judgment. But it's kind of it's some special groups and kind of push it all the way, right? So I know a lot of parents are not happy with sexuality education at public school, like fifth grade, fifth grade, and little kids in the elementary school. They don't know who they are. Maybe they already exposed and then, but not much, right? That is we gotta be careful though. Another criteria is utilities. Utilities are like utilities kind of reflect the significance and the validity. But this one is really focused on the individual learners. So utilities apply to usefulness of content in preparing students for adult life. It's not a significance. It's not the validity. So, and maybe you relate to directly or indirectly, but what about maybe relevant and really they could do something, right? And the functional approach to the sectional content kind of lead to a desired outcome behalf of the learner. So think about how this one is really useful when they graduate, when they finish this course and class, right? So utility, perspective of utility criteria is the utility is really, individually oriented, reflect the concept of values and usefulness of the content to individual learners experiencing the proposed curriculum. Okay, when you finish this Christian education, and are you ready for? Maybe you can pursue more education. Maybe you can work in the Christian institute, and maybe educational institute, maybe church. I don't know, right? That is so. And so skills and values are ready and to really deliver what we really want to deliver in the objectives, right? So it's really valuable to those who favor more functional school curriculum, job school, job training school like this, because it can be instrumental maintain the real world relevance in schools, right? And that is one of the criteria. But if you go to primary education and secondary education, just the building of the basic knowledge of understanding of society, and not them. Maybe they develop the writing skills and communication skills, and they are. It's a long way to go, but they're developing little by little, right? That's the purpose of education. Another thing is the learnability. And okay, so curriculum is designed, is appropriate, and to be learned by the students. A lot of people have different socio-economic background nowadays, and by researches, and then if they have very good, higher and better socio-economic background, I mean the parents has higher education and their income is kind of higher than average, and they have more chance to expose to, they have more chance to have resources and to be exposed to other opportunities. That's why their success rate is higher, right? But even though they came from different background and different social economic background, it's learnable. The student can learn or not. And if you just think about in public school system, think about the private school system. Education system it's really different though. Public school system is like, and we're gonna learn later on teaching learning style, and that there's a lot of times delivery the knowledge, and then when you go to private school, then they present more their own thinking based on the information that they got, and they develop how they know how to speak and how to present themselves, and kind of different way they understanding and thinking. But public school is not that much about process and just sitting in teachers teach and dismiss until high school. But when they go to college and teach, totally different though. If they have background like private school background and have a public school background, then it's very different. Right? It's really different. My daughters experience that kind of differences. So think about, maybe there is a different capacity and ability for learners, but still it's learnable. Even though it's a little bit, it's kind of a hard for the in the beginning, it's hard for the ones of people who never exposed in kind of education, but still it's catchable, it's learnable 1 year later, 2 years later, right? So learnability is an aspect of students' readiness, how much they are ready to this level. And then, and they actually, I still remember my daughters, and then she was in freshman of college, and there was a freshman seminar class, and then it's around 12 people in the class. 11 people, and then one day, one of the professor asked my daughter, do you know that these are philosophers? She never taken a philosophy class. Most people knows who came, who had private school background, and my daughter said no, right? Because teacher knows kind of, they know the education background. Like this. But still, if they have ability, so there is no problem. Maybe take a couple months, 1 year to catch up. But still, that's why learnability is very important. So it is extremely difficult for the developer to predetermine the curriculum contents that take into account of learner readiness. Of course, we don't know who is coming from. Maybe college is easier, but just think about I live in the suburban area in Los Angeles, and then I live in the Los Angeles County, and then it's a borderline to Orange County, so I live in Cerritos. That is a pretty middle class and middle high class live there usually, and not many. It's a small city. It's a lot of Asians and majority of the minority, right? And then most kids, like in my kids' years, and then most kids went to the academy of the school and personal tutoring after school like that. And for the kids, they already pre-exposed and they learned, and maybe they don't have any problem to go to next level. And then they know the kind of academic level is already set around that area. But there is kind of a different school, and another is a really prestigious school, high school, and there is a regular high school is there. And then the other is a little bit low people who are the low socioeconomics and around the area and other area. So, but still in our same school district, but it's a lot of difference. And but just think about, even though there's differences there, and then what about learnability, right? And maybe I see the class of my daughter was in high school, and there's three kind of classes. AP class is advanced placement, and then they can take like a college level class. They said, I think it's not college level, but they said college level AP class. There's an honor class. There's a regular class. Do you know what is the difference between among the classes? Okay. I heard, and also AP class is there's a textbook here, and they cover the whole book through the year, for the semester. That's an AP class. Maybe there's some extra things, and then what is the honor class? Maybe they finish the 2.5 or 2/3. That is an honor class. Regular class is like they end like 1/3 or half. They don't finish a whole. That is one of the criteria I heard, that kind of the speed of a class. But maybe there's a common content that you should learn. Maybe if some surrounding AP class and they move fast, but still there's a common thing that you gotta know that. And then but a lot of people for the AP class, honor class, and a little bit higher knowledge, and then they can little bit speed up. That is a different one. But learnability, so we gotta really think about and how student can adopt, and how student can be successful through the curriculum, right? So this is learnability is to check the student readiness. What about the interest? And the last criteria is interest, and then like it's related to social also relevancy, and then interest is like people. I like really theoretical stuff, like read philosophy and sociology and theory and like this, but not. I don't know how many people like this, and some people like the really visible and tangible and what, right? Touchable, and they learn through, and then it's really focus on the theory, and a lot of students may be really bored, right? They are not interested in class anymore. Maybe some of them really relate to, maybe they are interested, and then they touch and make and really interested. So how can we think about, and I heard the UCs, the universities, California universities are really theoretically, and then toward the theory, and then what is Cal State, California State University really towards the practice, and then little bit different, but they have a basic understanding of knowledge, right? So it depends on your interest. And that's why we gotta be careful really and immature development, individualistic emphasis on something. And sometimes I'm really interested in but others. We always think about what are the needs, student need, and parents need, and society need, right? And how can just think about giving practicality, and then sometimes and there is no theoretical background, it's going to be easy to develop next step. That's a criteria that we gotta consider when you select your content. Here is some, sometimes when you take the class, and then there's a lot of pressure about there, like I already politically and lobbyists is out there, and politics out there, and then they will reflect their own interest, right? And I don't know that, so I never heard that, a couple years ago, and then they teach the sexuality and sex in different level to students, pre-exposed, and I never imagined, I never dreamed, they thought about before, right? So they want to kind of, education really important, and then they want to push their own interest. And this one is from the book, and then it's based on the Australia, not America. So maybe think about, maybe it's a lot of there is area and pressure source, and then content form, then curriculum impact, and then what kind of area, and then pushed by some group, and then how can context was formed was the curriculum, and then what curriculum impact, the impact on the curriculum, right? I'm going to give you some examples, like we are really talking about global warming, right? So that's environmental education. How can you do that? 20 years ago, and it was not that big. I'll go already talk about the global warming, but I don't know the science, and then how many years ago, and then kind of all like dinosaur instinct because of the change of weather, and then right? I don't know what causes kind of change of weather at that time. But sometimes maybe global warming is true, but I don't know what causes maybe we change the what is the natural resources, and then like coal, reducing coals and gases, and then instead of using electricity, and then how much we can slow down and how much we can contribute to global warming. Sometimes, I don't know, I'm not a scientist, I'm not an environmentalist, and sometimes, and that is a kind of causes by human being. What about the natural causes? Maybe a natural system, that a solar system and galaxies and everything has a natural system that we cannot imagine. Right? I don't know. But there is think about environment education, and pressure group is there in Australia, and environmental groups like Greenpeace and Conservation Foundation, like this kind of group is there. I didn't look up the American groups, but there's pressure groups there, and you gotta teach, and nowadays that way, they develop composite stuff, and whenever you go to the environmental friendly, and then they use straws, like 50 minutes later it's kind of wobbly, and what's a pork made from the potato, I don't know exactly how. So they try to really dispose it naturally and quickly, right? Not harm the environment. That one is we develop a lot of develop the technology, and but still people need to really think about environment, and they don't think about using the water bottle. They always use a cheap disposable stuff, plate and fork and all kind of stuff, right? I know my friend at church, and she is coming here. She didn't say that she's an environmentalist, but she doesn't want to use too much disposable stuff. Always carries the water bottle, and even though she went to the restaurant, she brings her own container. She doesn't want a bag, and she doesn't want to use other stuff. So once we had lunch together, and she has a leftover, and then she took out her waiter asked her, do you need a box? And then she said, oh, I have my own. And she took out container from her purse bag, right? And there's how can we, what's the content, how can content form the content, and then just think about how can you put the environmental education across the curriculum, maybe 101, 201, 301, 401, like this, across the curriculum. So subject integration, maybe geography and science, right? They can inform, and they gotta kind of let them be alert. That's education. And what about the curriculum impact? And they can provide a selective, right? And provide success, policy and document, and a lot of they can do them. And there's a bunch of it's a multicultural education, like in California, and also and health issues, and what about technology, and what about foreign language, and then and road safety and gift and talented program, and there's the content pressures, right? Content pressures. Maybe depend on society, there is more. Sometimes if you go to it's not a Republican countries and dictators or communist countries and as a ruled by the dictator, and then they are not control the education. Depends on how much. Even though America is depends on how much, and then they control the primary education as a with a core program. And depends on how much, right? And so education should be neutral. I know there's a personal agenda is there always, but when you go to I'm from the church, right? I'm a pastor, and then even though I don't work at church, but still I do other stuff. But still, when you talk to parents for children's education, they have their own agendas a lot. If they don't, their agenda get through, what happened? Issues coming out and problematic at church like this. I can experience a lot. So we gotta really be careful and not project their personal and certain groups' agenda, right? So, architectonics of content, how can we build up the whole content? How can we do that? First of all, we got to think about the scope of curriculum content. What is the scope? Scope may be from introduction to all the way from breadth, right? From to where and where, side to side, and then maybe what about scope and depth? Content should be studied. Maybe low level to higher level. Think about the depth and width, breadth, right? That's the scope. So the content is arranged at a specific point in time and degree of depth of the content to be covered at that particular time. Right? Specific point of it in time and what? And then, and what? You gotta, from the beginning and from the was a simple and old and complex and late. So, before we get the right content, we gotta have some question about to get the depth and then depth and width, breadth. And how much of each content area should the student study at any one time? So one time and twice and three times that. So what should be the ratio of time spent on math, science, English, and social science, physical education, music, and so on, right? Just think about primary school, and they have certain English classes every day, math is a class every day, but social science maybe twice a week, like this. How can they assign in a week how much they can cover? Scope. And is there any body of common content that all students should know? Okay, any or body of content everybody should know, right? Even though they have a higher achiever or gifted whatever, and then someone who is not that ready for the next level, not that ready for this level, but still when they take a class at 101, and what kind of material should be common, or who are ready or who are not ready. So all students leave school being exposed to a set of common learning. Alright, so if you finished, some of us are really excellent in this program, some are just passing, but when you finish this Christian education, what kind of common knowledge you had and graduate and you can use, right? And if once you support the notion of a core plus elective approach to content, what should be the roles of elective content? There is a requirement classes there, and there is what elective classes, or what kind of electives, what is the role of the elective classes, right? And when you wanna graduate this program and there's a requirement class, you're gonna take whether you like it or not. But there is some interesting class and outside of the there's elective. So any relevant questions of basic curriculum development today? So what content should be excluded from the curriculum? Political agendas and pressure groups, interest groups. Maybe someone coming from someone has their own interest, right? So we gotta know that though. Which one is we gotta screen very well. So, what about we gotta know the company are influenced by time and core common content, especially the integration, exclude, and then we gotta think about which one. There is a basic stuff we're gonna need, and then how can we kind of solve the select program like the scope of a curriculum, and we can decide and think about time. First of all, is a kind of major constraint when determining the scope of content. Maybe which is how can you start and how can you finish. Right? So just think about, and this is we could say a certain amount of time and certain amount in-depth and breadth, and then it's really how much a student can learn and develop, and depends on time. That's why it's really, time is really important. What about the core common content? Right? Which are the really applicable society, and then which are the basically should know before they go into society. If they want to have higher education, and then just think about primary and secondary education. So this core concept is suggested that there is a body of content that all students should acquire as a result of this schooling experience. And that's why, and like a requirement, if you see the K-12 classes, and not much, until junior high school, not much in America, and not much is elective class. Maybe Korea too. And even college, not that much in elective class when I was in Korea. And if you go to college, and there's a lot of different, there's categories there, and depends on school, right? Provide a lot of elective classes, and then some other relate to your class. Like for me, and then I gotta take some, my one of the was upper class was human sexuality relationship, and then for the class I gotta take what you don't have to elect human sexuality in bio class. So I took the human sexuality bio. So they learn about the human's body and reproduction systems and gender issues, all kind of issues, right? And approach, from the biological perspective. So core or common. So there's a core programming, right? They developed, and then you gotta learn, you gotta teach. That's a system runs by America. What about the special need? So we already talk about, and everybody not same, and depends on the school area, depends on the student, depends on the society, and what there is special need. And then think about when you scope of the curriculum content. Sorry. And what about the integration of content? So sometimes we cannot provide every subject, and then how can we integrate to subject with other things, right? And maybe, and then it's really, instead of taking a lot of, maybe in-depth level is a little bit different, but still they can expose to other stuff, right? So, but we gotta know the basic purpose of education, and we gotta kind of a recommendation from the specialists and scholars, and then we can eventually put together, and then in curriculum, and then the student take the learn from their curriculum. And sometimes we gotta know the kind of go back and then think about maybe the curriculum is keep going and circular and cyclical and then circular, and then we gotta know that, reiterate the previous program and question, and then which one is we can take out, which one is add, right? That is really important things, and then it means that we consider changing of the society, and then we consider the readiness of the student. And sequence of curriculum content, and then here is some question is there. How can we array the curriculum subject, and then so what criteria should determine the order of content? Which one class first, and then how can we do that? And why should follow what and why? We gotta ask. And then, of course, there is objectives and goals there, and then we got a question, and then when should the learner acquire certain content? When they finish this level, and what they're gonna learn, and like this, and then what about another level, and then when they're gonna learn about that one, right? So here is the criteria for the sequencing context. I don't know whether you guys, and scope is really important, right? And then vertically and width, and just think about, and from 101 to for the college program and elementary, and they kind of develop really well. So I want to see college education now, and then first freshman and sophomore and junior and senior. How can you present the class like horizontally, right? First year, and what about in-depth of the, maybe you can use to change it, what about in-depth? What is the first year, just an introduction class, and what's the second one, maybe junior year, sophomore is a little bit advanced one. While sophomore, and then you can maybe intermediate level of kind of a class, and they can kind of, there's some integration and they can introduce, and then maybe junior year in-depth knowledge, and maybe senior year in the applicable class, like this. And so we gotta know the vertically, how can we lay out, how can we first and second years, and then you can present the content. So that's the sequencing. So usually simple to complex mean that it may be simple to complex. Complex is kind of integrated and more knowledges, right? And sometimes you gotta know the basic knowledge to get the complex. And then if you present the complex things, and if you don't have any basic things, and it's hard to understand, and you gotta go back, how we develop this one, like a social. I don't know the science much, but social studies like that, right? How this, about learning, how about like this, and then learnings, and how they develop the theory, who developed the theory, like what kind of learning theories are out there now. But without any philosophical background and then the theory background, it's hard. Learning is this, but if you know the history, and if you know the background of the theories, and then it's easy. That's why. And prerequisite learning means that certain class, you gotta take the class before this class, and you gotta take another class, and then you can go this class. That's a prerequisite class, right? And usually engineering and science class, there is always a prerequisite class, right? And because you don't have a basic knowledge, you cannot understand, and you cannot go next level. So I study psychology. It's not many, but still there is like human sexuality, relationship. We really focus on relationship, and but not the biological perspective. And then there's a prerequisite class, this one, like this, and maybe bio one. If you wanna do some class, and you gotta take the bio, you wanna take a bio 301, and then you gotta take a bio 1, bio 202. But if you wanna bio 201, and then you need to take a bio 101, like this, and then kind of sequencing. And chronological, chronology is like you can see the historical timeline, and let them take the class, because we can see how the theories and knowledge is developed. What about the whole to part learning? Sometimes if you don't have whole pictures, and then maybe I like this one, and sometimes you gotta draw the whole pictures, and then jump into specific knowledge. That's why I study psychology, and then there's an introduction of psychology, maybe basic psychology, and then they showed everything, and development psychology, and normal psychology, and social psychology, and they don't title like that in the book, but still later on they divide it to the each topics. And what about examples, right? And maybe good specific examples which are very helpful, for the sequencing. And here is kind of a sequencing that I already told you, and about a circular kind of diagram, and then you can see that in the book. And then example is like a mastery of the math class and 7th grade, and what about 8th grade, what about 9th grade and 10th grade. That is an example of the I can see them maybe when 7th grade is algebra and algebra 1 and algebra 2, and some, I don't know what is that, and what is a calculus 1, 2 like this, and their level is always sequenced, and they need to follow that one, right? And so if you cannot pass, and then you don't have to, it's a kind of, calculus is like a college level, and calculus is a little bit different level is there still, there is a sequencing though. So that one is kind of, basic to higher. Okay, so today we learn about the curriculum content. What is the curriculum content? How can, what is the criteria to select the curriculum content, and how can we develop the curriculums, and that's today's topic, and how can we build up the curriculum, and then what is the criteria, what is the we should know to kind of should be careful of the pressure groups and like this, and then today is related to the curriculum content. Maybe if you really more interested in, you can see that your curriculum, how it's designed. You can see why they put the first year and second year. The master program is usually 2 years, and then think about, and then if you think, if you cannot see much difference, and go to the college years, and then you can see how it's different in the high schools, right? What you learn in the like math and social science and English, and how different you can see that one. That is kind of content, related content. I hope that you guys can get some how to do that, and we don't know.